My name is Jacob. I'm co-founder and CEO of Camunda. I'm going to talk about how we implemented DMN, what you can do in Camunda with it, and also how you can combine it with BPMN and CMMN. We have started Camunda as an open source BPM project for modeling and execution of BPMN in the first place about 3 years ago. Since then, we have seen quite a rapid adoption. So actually, there's even 2 users from NASA using Camunda for pretty cool stuff there in the back, so really happy to see that as well. Besides that, it's mostly companies like AT&T and others using it. When you compare Camunda to other BPMS, it's all about developer friendliness. So we do not believe in zero-code BPM or low-code application development. We think that's actually kind of stupid. So that's why we focus on BPM and provide that in a developer-friendly fashion. Not many people clapping about that. Right, so DMN, why DMN? We think it's cool because it allows us to externalize decision logic from the source code, make it more transparent, accessible to different people. It makes us more flexible, so we can test and change decision logic without even changing or touching the application, let alone redeploy it, which is great for being more agile. And last but not least, we also like DMN because it allows us to have a certain degree of traceability. So in Camunda, we have a concept called history. So when you execute decision tables, then it's all going to be logged in some history, and we can still see why decisions have been made based on which rules that applied, etc., etc. So that's what we implemented in Camunda. In our stack, this leads to the modeler. So the modelers are meant to be used by business analysts as well as developers, supporting all 3 standards, saving those in the standard compliant files that can be then deployed and executed by the engine. Engine is being consumed via Java and REST APIs. This is the DMN table editor. It's free to use. You can just download it there at that URL. So it's a desktop application for Mac, Linux, and Windows. And it's actually based technically on JavaScript library that is also open source. So the very same table editor is also available in the web at demo.bpmn.io/DMN. So I'm going to demo that as well, of course. Yeah, so as you can already see, we focus on decision tables right now, not so much DRDs or things like that. So I can cover that in the Q&A session, of course. We have implemented those hit policies here. So unique and collect are the most common ones that we have seen so far. First is also quite popular. It's all documented online. So there's that link that you probably cannot see, but it's in the slide deck. So the whole documentation is online. You can just read it up there. We've implemented field to a certain extent, going a bit beyond simple field, but not implementing the whole simple field thing at the same time. So it's about string, numeric values, boolean, and date. And we have typical comparisons like ranges and stuff like that. We have also extended that. So for us, it's, as I said, always about developer friendliness. So we can also allow people to, for example, use JavaScript or Groovy or Python or Ruby in order to determine input expressions, not just plain variable pointers. And it's all, as I said, very lightweight. So the decision engine itself is like less than 100 kilobyte, exposed via public Java API, which is super important for unit testing, for example, and other things. Then we have the REST API on top of that, and on top of that is our own UI that is consuming the very same REST API that is available to you as well. It's quite okay in terms of performance, so there has done some performance benchmarks. Of course, those are like very simple tables there, especially for the 200K decisions per second. So we have not yet really optimized the performance, but we're going to do that, of course, as well. Since it's so lightweight and easy to operate, we have dropped it on Amazon Web Services, so it's available there as well. Just point your browser to DMN Camunda Cloud. You can just try it out yourself, so you don't need to operate the decision engine like locally or whatever if you don't want to. So in terms of integration, it's a very common thing to look at business rule tasks in BPMN. So that's what we use in order to call decision tables from a BPMN process. That's what I'm going to demonstrate. Regarding CMMN, we have CMMN 1.1, which means that there's a decision task concept, which looks very similar to the business rule task in BPMN. So that's what we use in order to call decision tables from CMMN case management models. Right. Need to slow down a bit. So in terms of developer friendliness, it means that we don't expect non-developers to implement applications. They would be developers then. Therefore, we look at operations if it's about non-developers changing decision tables at runtime. That's where we see a lot of value. In my demo, I'm going to talk about a process that we can all relate to. It's about lead qualification for software vendors. So most of the people in the room here know what this is about. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate. I will demonstrate the first part of that process, which is about stuff like, determining if a lead is actually interesting, determining how quick we should react to it, who should actually react to it, so assigning that lead and things like that. So I will, show that diagram in a second. All right. Okay. Okay, so let's calm down a bit. And what I have here is just some fake website about a fake company called Comundancia, which is all about a super awesome invoice processing solution. So it's not a BPM vendor, but it's actually a solution provider for invoice processing. So the main target group are companies with accounting departments, obviously. So when I visit that website, I can request a live demo, typical lead capturing form situation. I've already just pre-populated those fields because I'm going to demo that a number of times. And then I'm supposed to enter some information about my company, so how big that company is. Let's say it's about not that big, and maybe I have just a number of accountants working in my company, and I'm from the, let's say, insurance industry, and I can also ask, hey, give me that demo kind of message. So that's what I'm supposed to fill out as an end user or customer of that, software company. So I'll request that demo now. And this is when the process gets triggered within Camunda. So let's look at first at the task list, which is the end user application. So we can see that just a few seconds ago there has been a task created that has been assigned to a guy called Peter Meter. And so there's some information, that task form about the lead, etc., etc. But first of all, I would like to look at why this task has been assigned to that Peter Meter guy. So let's switch to Cockpit, which is the monitoring application, and look what has happened so far. So in Cockpit, we can currently see that, let me quickly refresh that there's that process lead qualification that is currently in production, and there's one running instance. Everything is okay so far, so let's inspect that. So if there would be more than one instance, we would see where they're currently pending in the BPMN diagram. So there's just that one instance. Let's look at that and see what has happened so far. So let's look at the history and maybe zoom in a bit. Okay, so obviously we can see here now in the audit trail that we have timestamps down there, but we can just visually see that the process has been initiated because a lead was received. So then there have been some business rule tasks about that so-called fit score and the deadline for that lead. Then we're entering a sub-process, which is mostly because of that deadline here that should trigger some reminder. And then we have here a sub-process that is about assigning that lead automatically. So that's what I'm interested in right now, because I would like to understand why Peter is supposed to work on that lead. So what I can quickly do now is I can look at the call process instance, which is this one here. And now we have a number of business rule tasks in a row, all of them calling a decision table. So we can see here is apparently we're trying to look at the country of that lead. So that is determined based on the IP, and then we actually group that in regions. Then we have the actual decision table, which is all about determining which SDR should work on that lead. Then I'm kind of violating DMN for maintaining the current availabilities of people, because it's so easy to change that stuff, etc., etc. So most interesting is probably this table here. So let's look at that one now, and we are still in that specific process instance. So now I can actually see the decision that has been made. So I will click on that, and we will see the decision table here. And that's a quite simple table for the sake of this demo, of course. So there's just two input columns. It's about the region that the lead came from, which is North America in this case, and the industry that the lead indicated they're in. And then we have the specific username of that SDR that should work on it. And this is actually some other output which would apply if that SDR wouldn't be available right now. So what we can see here now is that this row is highlighted because in this specific instance, that is the rule that has applied based on those input data that came from the BPMN process. And because of that, obviously, we have those outputs, which is the assigned SDR and the manual assigner. So this is the first thing. So this allows us to have a certain degree of traceability, as I mentioned before. So what else did I want to show? Oh yes, exactly. Let's just kick off another request. So let's say this time it's actually a bit more interesting. So it's a big company, lots of accountants working there, maybe same industry, maybe finance, whatever. So this lead here is, as we all know, probably more interesting actually for that software vendor. So let's see what happens now. When we look at that second task that has been created, It's for John Doe. So this is probably because of that industry. But what I find interesting right now is the priority. So in task list or in Camunda, we have the concept of priorities for tasks. And it's shown here. So this priority is 100, and the priority for the first request was 55. So what is that all about? It's about what we call the fit score, not in Camunda BPM, but in this specific solution. So the fit score means that based on those parameters, we determine how interesting that lead actually is. So let's look at how that actually came about. So when looking at, now we can see that there are actually a number of instances that have been, run through that process already. We can actually look at the heat map and see that, all of them were available, so that's fine so far. And now let's look at that specific process instance about that higher fit score. So diddle-diddle-lip. That's actually about the determine fit score thingy here. Okay, so when I look at that, I can see what has happened. And this is now a different hit policy. For all of you who are new to DMN, there's different hit policies such as unique, which means that only one rule may apply on one execution, but also very common is collect. And collect means that there may be more than one rule that can apply in one execution of that decision table. And then we can actually specify a certain collect operator. This is now not Camunda, but DMN standard stuff. So in this case, we say, okay, when we look at collect, we're interested in the sum of all the outputs, So when we're operating with numeric values here, like in this case, since this is a scoring table, obviously, it's going to be, add up all those numbers, which will then lead to 100, which is like maximum fit score. Yes, so that's actually why this, the second request is even more interesting for us than the first. This means also that we have the ability in task list to, for instance, sort by priority and things like that, which is nice, of course. And what's also a pretty common thing in task list is to create custom filters. So I can say, for example, okay, let's say high priority tasks, and I can now say, okay, please show me all tasks that can have all kind of characteristics, but let's say all those that have a priority which is at minimum, let's say, I don't know, maybe 70, okay? So now we see only that specific task, and we have an immediate filter about, the more interesting leads and things like that. Quick zip, sorry. Now speaking of how this actually works, like looking behind the scenes, of that integration. So let's have a look at the modeler. Let's see how BPMN and DMN play together in this example. So as I said, we are developer friendly, which means we don't have any specific application development environment. So this is, for example, Eclipse, but I can also use, of course, IntelliJ or NetBeans or whatever I like as a developer. However, when it comes to BPMN and DMN, of course, we provide some authoring, some tooling. So, for example, we have that lead qualification process here, and this is now the Camunda modeler, which is free to use. The Camunda modeler allows you to create BPMN diagrams in a quite, friendly way and an easy way, and also, of course, DMN tables. So that's what I'm doing here right now. And when looking at, for example, let's say, the fit score parameter, okay? So this is how it works. We can pick the implementation type, which is DMN in this case, which means that we are looking at the built-in DMN capability of Camunda. Could also be some external stuff like Java class or expression or scripts or a connector to some external system or whatever. But right now it's about the built-in DMN engine. So that's what I said here. And then we will simply name the decision. So we have an idea for that decision table, which is actually to be seen here as well. So there we have the fit score identified decision table. And then we are talking about binding, which means we have a versioning, a built-in versioning for decision tables as well as BPMN, etc. We will look at a result variable that we actually want to have available once the decision has been made. And that variable then can be used in any other artifact of the process. Let it be some Java class that is executed, let it be some form that is displayed, but also let it be some attributes in the BPMN. So that's what I actually made for that priority thing, So I just said, okay, I have that variable called fit score now. And that is now just like flying around in the process context. I can refer to it. So for example, when looking at the review fit score task, I just say, okay, here, this is the due date. This is the priority, sorry, the priority. So I just say with an expression, we are using the unified expression language here, which is also a standardized thing. So just saying, okay, the priority should actually be the fit score, very simply, pointing to that variable. I'm also defining a due date. So I'm saying, okay, when should that task actually be completed? And this is here the ISO standard notation for, defining date ranges and stuff like that, like PT, I don't know, 1 hour or whatever. But I'm actually, building together that PT expression and then also, again, referring to another variable, which is called response hours, multiplying that by 30 and then saying in minutes, which simply means if it's like 2 hours, it means like 60 minutes, because I want to have like only half of the time available for that task, because the response hours, I'm now jumping a bit, is what applies to the whole sub-process. That's the whole idea. So I'm saying in this other decision table, determining deadline. Let me quickly show that. Where is it actually? Response hours, exactly. So I'm just saying, okay, if the fit score is, for example, between 20 and 50, then we should respond to that lead within 2 hours, okay? So this is now something that I have defined. We should respond within 2 hours, and I'm referring to that, as I said, in the due date for the tasks, which is like, then based on that, but also in the due date for the timer event, which is also saying, okay, after 2 hours, this timer event kicks in, and then we will do some stuff like sending a reminder email, for example. Okay. So what I'm trying to explain is that we have all options in the world here based on that approach to leverage what we have determined in decision executions at any point in the BPMN diagram. Let it be the assignee that has been determined by a DMN table, let it be the due date or the priority, the condition, of course, in a sequence flow, like, for example, in here, so if it has been determined or not, stuff like that. No, sorry. Okay, so what I would like to do now is change something in the decision table. So let's say, for example, that we want to say that the guy who should work on that lead, which is currently based on regions and industry, should also be determined based on the fit score. The higher the fit score, the more likely it is that we should work on that immediately with a high qualified person. So maybe we have some specific person for that, like skill-based routing, basically. So I could do that in here, of course, and then, redeploy my application, which has embedded the DMN file, etc. But I can also just do it like on the fly. So what I can do in Cockpit is I can say, okay, please show me my currently deployed decisions, like, for example, the lead assignment decision table, and I can now say, okay, I want to edit that. So I can say, okay, I would like to add a new rule here. That policy is first, so the first rule that applies will then, determine the outcome. I will say, no, I actually don't care about the region, and I don't care about the industry either. I'm caring about the fit score right now. So let's say if the fit score, which is a numeric value, here, like an integer, could also be a double, it's, let's say, higher than 70, okay? If that is the case, I don't know, the demo user should actually work on that. And yeah, well, that's not really important right now. Okay, so I've just edited now directly in Cockpit without, looking at my development environment or whatever. I'm basically working on my production server right now. So just say, okay, I want to proceed. And it's telling me, hey, you're playing with fire, which I still find funny in a way. So I have to confirm. And there we go. So the table has now been deployed, redeployed as a new version. So the old version is still there, and we can switch back, etc., etc. But now it's actually live. So let's just request that thing again, see if it works. Now I'm curious myself. It's always been given live demos. Okay, looks good so far. So let's see what has happened. Exactly. So now we have that task that has been directly assigned to the demo user, because that now change decision table kicked in, obviously. So the last thing I want to explain in this one, I have two more parts of that demo, is about how we can leverage those decision tables beside calling them from BPMN diagrams, which is of course nice. But the good or the beauty is that we have created it in a way that the decision engine is also available standalone. So it's exposed via Java and REST API. I can use it completely decoupled from the BPMN engine. And just to show you one use case, for example, you can see it here actually. This is the fit score, okay? That was determined in the process. Let's assume for some reason that I'm thirsty. Let's assume for some reason that those parameters are wrong. So we want to actually correct that. So we're saying, hey, that guy is not actually from the finance industry. That guy is actually from, I don't know, the telco. Oh, it's still pretty good, like some other industry, okay? And it's actually a small company and they don't have any accountants, and that's pretty bad. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually calling that decision table again. So with every change I'm making here in this form, every time it's just simply a JavaScript AJAX call going directly to the REST API and asking for that fit score once again. That's what I'm basically doing here. So I can leverage the very same decision table, maintain those business rules in one place, and using it from very different endpoints or clients. I can even change it again. So let's do that. Let's say, for example, okay, so right now if the industry is other, it has a fit score of 50. Consulting is a bit better. So let's change something significantly. So let's say if the industry is other, that's actually super bad. So let's say that will actually, reduce the fit score by 30 points, okay? So I can, again, proceed, playing with fire, thanks for that. And there we go. So let's see what happens. And there we go. So so again, I have leveraged that power, of DMN in a totally different situation, and that's what I really like about it. Okay, how many time do I have left? Because I started a bit earlier, so I'm not sure. It's not like I started at 10. Okay, cool. So I think let me quickly check my schedule because I really have to make sure I didn't forget anything. Change fit score table. Okay, I think I have it. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to demo very quickly is our cloud offering, just to let you know. So when you point your browser to dmn.commando.cloud, then you will end up in this little website here. And it's a very simple thing, really. We wanted to make it as simple as possible. And it's also in beta test mode, just to be frank about that. But anyway, it's great fun, really. So what we have done here is we have just provided the table editor as part of this website. So what I can do now is there's just an example here. If I like, I can actually extend that example, like saying, okay, it's summer, and I don't know if it's up to 8, there's going to be light salad, and if it's more than 8, we should actually make that more consistent. And then it should be, I don't know, we're Germans, it's going to be crowd, of course. Stupid stereotypes, but I can't help it. Right, so let's say, I don't know how many guests, whatever, and there we go. So we can actually test that right away. This is just testing now, showing me that this table is basically working based on those input data. And now I can also deploy it. I don't want to deploy this table right now because I want to show you something else, because what I can also do is, of course, download and upload the DMN XML files. So it's all based on those standardized XML files. And I can just drag and drop. Let's take that lead assignment table, for example, okay? Dragging it in here, so now it's available. And okay, I could still, just making sure that it's actually working as intended, saying, I don't know, North America, and the industry is other, so there's no specific SDR right now, that should be manually assigned. Okay, so now it's actually there. I can now deploy it. So when I hit the deploy button, I don't need, as you have noticed, to sign up or register or anything. So it's kind of a doodle kind of DMN offering, So I just deploy it, and then I get a public key and a private ID. So the idea behind that is that I can use the public key to call that decision table now from my application. And since that could be, for example, a JavaScript thingy in my website, of course, I'm going to, how to say that, not commit, but compromise that key so people could see that. That's why I have a separate private ID that I shouldn't share that will allow me, for example, to edit that table later on if I like, without touching my application once again. So what I'm going to do now is very simply just copy that stuff. Maybe, I don't know, copy it there. And also copy the private ID. So, okay. And now that that table is available, it's deployed on technically AWS in the back. So I can, for example, open it and look at it, but that's not what I'm going to do right now. I'm just very simply using the advanced REST client, so simulating that I have, some application now. So calling that that service now, I need to hand over, of course, the public key. So let's quickly do that as part of that URL. That's some former test that I ran. And I think, yeah, that's actually the JSON that is expected now. So very simple, like the region, the industry. So let's see if that works. Looks okay. So exactly, it's a demo user that should work on that lead. Okay, so this is apparently working. What I can do now, of course, is, as I mentioned, I can, let's say, take that private ID. Okay, so go to Edit. Okay, and now I can just change that if I like, So I don't know, I can do whatever. What was actually my call? It's APEC. Okay, so in the case of APEC, it's supposed to be demo. Let's say it's, I don't know, Horst, and I can just deploy that. And the public key stays the same. Okay, so when I just make that REST call once again, so now it's recommending Horst, okay? So this means that I can leverage DMN in any application, basically, without operating our decision engine. So that's quite nice. And what we have provided here as well is some examples with coding examples for, C# and whatever kind of language that people can just, check it out themselves on GitHub and use it if they like. There's also some, ready-to-use examples, like what to do in Berlin, for example, and get some recommendations what you can do in Berlin based on the time of the year that you're there. And you can look at that decision table. And yeah, actually, some people are trying it out from time to time. So there's also a nice little heat map that, let me quickly check if that's available. Oh yeah, okay, they're all doing the same stuff, of course. So heat map for DMN, which is like not making too much sense because it's always like the same row, but still nice. So I'm curious, actually, what happens if I say, hey, I'm visiting Berlin in summer without kids, it's sunny, it's afternoon, I want to chill out. So there's plenty of stuff to do in Berlin at that, like embarrass yourself karaoke. And so let's quickly check if that actually impacts the heat map, because it should. So just wondering about that. Yes, exactly. So now we have, some other stuff. Okay. So once again, this is just an example of what you can do with the whole stack. I mean, the Cloud Offering is nice, but it's really more kind of a fun project for now. But it demonstrates how easy it is to leverage that whole stuff in your own fashion. Like the heat map, for example, it's something we just built like in a day based on the DMN.js JavaScript library that we have created. Okay, so to actually emphasize that even more, I come to the last part of my demo, which I've scheduled with fun. So what we have created last year was a little fun project leveraging bpmn.io, our open source modeling framework project that is very, very customizable. It's about BPMN and also the other two standards. So we have actually created, and this is the only cheat here because it's a little very short screencast. We have created a dungeon editor, so we are really much into role-playing games. So we have taken BPMN.io and customized the palette with reusable parts of a dungeon that we can actually then put together in a drag-and-drop fashion and create those role-playing games. And if you like to try that out, not the editor, but like the game that we have created based on that, you can just point your browser to beeple.de, a domain that we didn't need it anymore. So then we like /game, and then there's a forward to that, and actually that's a pretty cool 8-bit music, like this. And so what happens now here is that we have this. Maybe making a bit lost. So this is really now BPMN being executed, So we can see this BPMN diagram that we have put together as our role-playing dungeon. So the first user task is to create your character, saying, I don't know, what's your name, and if you have certain stuff like certain intelligence by purpose not written correctly, and maybe a bit stronger therefore. And now I can actually continue. So now we're now entering the sub-process here, and it's all still BPMN being executed. That is why we have used BPMN.io to show where we're currently standing with a fog of war kind of feature, so we don't know what's happening next. And so I just can continue here and solve a riddle. Which task type is not part of BPMN? Manual task, receive task, ask task, or business rule task? Any opinion? Okay, yeah, that's actually correct. So then it just goes on, and the next thing is like, and that's actually what I wanted to demo is we can now fight a monster, and that's actually based, that's the DMN-based fighting engine that is now being applied with sounds made by ourselves, really, and so on and so forth. So you can try that out yourself, and it's quite popular. So the result will be treated. There's people using it from time to time, I believe, like BPMN Quest. So this is like Gunther 3000, for example, has already played it, but not done very well. So, but I'm demonstrating that partly because I like it, but also because it demonstrates, how much you can actually do with that whole open source framework kind of approach. Because the serious use case here is that, our customers are often application vendors themselves that want to provide workflow customization features. And that makes sense because if you narrow it down to a certain domain, then zero coding can work. It's just not the right approach for general application development. That's what we actually learned from 10 years of being in the field. Okay, I think that's it. So thanks a lot for your time.